Hello, I am C-3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
So the episode starts off, Obi-Wan is investigating a plot on Mandalore. There's been some Mandalorians doing suspicious activity in the galaxy, Jango Fett in particular, but also other Mandalorians, and the council needs to determine whether or not Mandalore is in league with the Separatists. They're the kind of leading the independent system movement, and so they don't want to be involved. And when Obi-Wan arrives to investigate, he's there to meet with Duchess Satine, who he has a past relationship with. There's a lot of banter back and forth. She's just insulted by the notion of being part of the war at all, whether it's as a separatist, and has no interest in joining his republic either. In that capacity, the prime minister is also insulted by the notion of Jango Fett being considered a Mandalorian. Satine and Obi-Wan go for a stroll throughout Mandalore when a bombing happens. This is from Death Watch. Satine previously had dismissed the notion of Death Watch being something to really worry about, and that they weren't actually doing these big activities in league with separatists. But then they find out that indeed this is Death Watch who's done the bombing. They were able to pinpoint in the crowd who was responsible. Obi-Wan chases him down and he kills himself to make sure that he doesn't reveal any information. Obi-Wan and Satine then travel to the moon Concordia to investigate things a little bit further. Concordia is where Death Watch had been banished to in the previous warrior culture of Mandalore. While they're there, Obi-Wan splits off to go investigate, and he has a kind of a comm link with Duchess Satine. Satine goes to dinner with Previzla, who is kind of the leader. I forget the specific name of his role on Concordia. But governor maybe. And so in that capacity, they're having dinner. They're kind of like, why isn't Obi-Wan here? Obi-Wan's investigating a factory, realizes that indeed Death Watch is building an army of Mandalorian warriors. Obi-Wan is captured and then kind of signals to Satine, hey, kind of need some help here. She's able to break free from dinner. And when she breaks free from dinner, Previzla knows what's going on. And so she's able to rescue Obi-Wan, but then Previzla meets up with them. He introduces the history of the Dark Saber and the history of the warrior Mandalorian culture, stating that we're not going anywhere. We're going to take over Mandalore, basically. And then Obi-Wan has a fight with Previzla, and then essentially everything kind of wraps up with the knowledge that there's now the warrior culture of Mandalore is back, and they're fighting to regain control of Mandalore, and Death Watch has support from the separatists and are actively committing terrorism. And so as opposed to just being a group of hooligans, as she calls them, this is something that is a lot more, and the plot thickens. So that would be, I guess, the quick and dirty of the episode.
Yeah, really well done. I think that this selection for an episode to recap, like a little arc that we're going to tackle for the next couple of weeks, is a really smart choice on your part, because we've just come down off of many months of discussing Mandalorian culture in another lens. And this really colors the pre-existing context for what's canonically Mandalorian, in that they're this widespread culture, and that there are other fringe groups. And that's a thing I think a lot of people are really having a hard time coming to terms with when they watch The Mandalorian, is when they see Bo-Katan for the first time and she takes off her helmet. They're on Din's side when he says, you're not a Mandalorian, you can't be if you can take off your helmet. And I think casual fans, and I don't mean that in like a condescending way, I think a lot of people who haven't seen the Clone Wars are at the end of the season still not really clear on how it's possible that they can take off their helmets if they're Mandalorians. I think they're more inclined to be suspicious of that than of Din's origins, and that's problematic. And so it's really useful to have seen this episode and to see that there's so much more to it than what Children of the Watch teach or Death Watch teaches. What is the difference between those two units, by the way, as long as I'm on the subject?
We don't know yet. My belief is that it is going to be very similar to First Order Empire relationship. One is, in this case, name and metaphorically the offspring of the other. Children of the Watch being the next generation of Death Watch, going to an even higher level of even more barbaric, even more extreme tendencies of the old Mandalorian way. This is the way. And so it's even taking it that extra step further of, oh no, we take this Mandalorian culture, this notion of being war, so seriously that we are thriving with pacifism, but we just love war so much that we'll join into the war. We can't stand being out of the war, even though that's kind of been our whole thing, is that we don't join up with other people.
Right.
We fight in wars, and we're our own side, and we can hold our own. But Death Watch doesn't even really care. It's just all about war. And then Children of the Watch seem to be a more loyal and traditional, in maybe good ways, comparatively to Death Watch,
But hostile.
And archaic. And so it's to be determined. It really is. We don't. They did rescue Din. They have been. The armorer was a good guy, as far as we knew. Din is a good guy. Then again, we also know Din has a bit of a shady past. But then again, the rest of Children of the Watch didn't seem to like Din for the fact that he was a bounty hunter and a Mandalorian. And Bo-Katan made that very clear, that that's not something that they like, because the most famous Mandalorians who don't stick close to Mandalore but make a name for themselves in the rest of the galaxy do so as bounty hunters. And there's not very many of them, but they do so. And because they're Mando fighters, they build a good rep.
So this is episode 12 of season 2 of the Clone Wars. So it's relatively early in the series. I assume this is the first time we're getting a lengthy historical background on what Mandalore is and what its people are.
In canon, yes. Quickly, I'm just try and look up and see if I can find the order, the episode order, because that's another thing. As much as this is season 2, episode 12, it does not necessarily mean it is the like what the chronological order is supposed to be.
I see. Because they aired out of order, is that a thing?
Yes. Thank you for explaining what I was trying to say. It is it actually does kind of work. If you watch them in order, it would be episode 39.
Okay.
And so that is fairly appropriate. So maybe a little bit after what it would be otherwise. But the 3 episodes that we're watching here are sequential regardless, and that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be watching the Mandalore plot, Voyage of Temptation, and Duchess of Mandalore. And so those 3 are a 3-part arc, and they fit as a unit regardless. And we have selected a handful of units and arcs, and this is going to fit well. There's about 3 different Mandalore themed arcs of 3 or 4 episodes, and so this is the first of those.
Well, I wanted to ask you in particular about the Duchess of Mandalore, because something you said in your recap throws me. I've seen this episode twice now, and I did not gather that this is a reunion between Satine and Obi-Wan. I thought that this was the beginning of their story together. There was not really a familiarity between these two. There was kind of like a wryness between them, which you get from Obi-Wan a lot of other ways. I didn't gather that there was more to their story. And so tell me a little bit about them and their relationship.
Yeah, it's a very quick line that's mentioned. Satine, I think, says something along the lines of, I don't remember who says it, but when Obi-Wan was much younger, when they were much younger, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan spent about a year as Satine's protection detail. So you know how the few days they spend working so closely with Padme in the Phantom Menace, as kind of protection for her as 2 Jedi that really need to work with a politician who is at risk. They did that for an entire year with Satine when they were like 18 or 19 years old, her and Obi-Wan. And so they developed a relationship, and Obi-Wan, he is the loyal soldier and she is the loyal politician, and neither of them compromise the way that Anakin and Padme do. And so they stay on their paths. And there's more that will develop here, but yes, they have a history in that regard. And that's why there's a lot of a lot of Han Leia banter, I find, between the 2 of them. And so I think it does a good job of kind of representing the passage of time the way that the start of Empire does, that these 2 have spent more time together. This kind of is emphasizing these 2 have spent some time together in the past.
By the way, it bears mentioning, and I don't think we've said this before, but Satine is a very odd name, and it happens to be Nicole Kidman's character's name in Moulin Rouge, which means Ewan McGregor has had 2 different love interests named Satine.
I had no idea. I did not know that.
And I don't know what that has to be purposeful or it can't be a coincidence, because what does Satine mean? It's so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, it's also annoying that there is Sabine
Yeah.
as
And
well.
are they sisters or no?
No, Satine's younger sister is Bo-Katan.
I was going to ask you how they're connected. Okay.
Yeah. So they're and Bo-Katan at this point is part of Death Watch. You don't meet her in this episode, but you will.
Oh, right.
And so that puts them on very different sides.
That also colors what we kind of sniff about Bo-Katan in the season finale of Mandalorian, because she seems to be a little bit maybe dangerous, a little bit hostile, maybe a little bit aggressive.
She is dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it comes to like the pride of her planet, and also in this case, her pride as well, which is taking a beating at times.
So we open with a fortune cookie that says, if you ignore the past, you jeopardize the future. Is there some kind of significance to this story there? Or are these just kind of like random little platitudes, these like kind of like empty fortune cookies, so to speak?
No, I don't think these ever are empty. I think they also can paint a bit of a picture for what's to come as well. And I think that also comes down to the relationship that these two have had together. So I think this is a little bit layered. And this is interesting because I know what's going to happen in these next few episodes. And you do too, kind of, but you don't really, in the sense that you know some things that I've mentioned. But there will be some interesting things in these next episodes that will reveal more about the relationship that Obi-Wan and Satine had in the past, and about decisions that they made or didn't make at that same capacity. And so I think a lot of that kind of catches up to them in this arc, and will in the next few arcs as well. And also in the same way that Death Watch was ignored. And in the past, this Mandalore is such a warrior-based culture, and how easy it can slip back into that. It very much goes to, if you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it. And Satine is not, she's willfully ignoring history. She's believing that she has almost beaten history by like, no, we are not part of wars. We are we have succeeded in our pacifism. Whereas no, you just moved all your aggressive leaders to one spot so that they could become more aggressive and build even stronger followings on Concordia. And so it was, I think it's viewed in that kind of way. There are some that fit better than others, but I think this one does fit.
Something I like about this show, and I think the best case for it to the hesitant fan of The Mandalorian who doesn't think that they'll like the Clone Wars or is afraid that it's going to be for kids, is that it is animated the way a graphic novel series is animated, like an ongoing comic book arc is. And it is kind of plotted similarly too, and that it's just broken up into these little runs of mini stories that ultimately kind of flow together in that they're one existing Star Wars universe. But like, we get 2 or 3 lines from Anakin at the end of this episode. He's otherwise not related to the story whatsoever. Meanwhile, we've covered on this podcast other arcs of this show that entirely revolve around Ahsoka and some of the clone troopers, and we didn't see a single clone trooper in this episode of the Clone Wars. And so it's kind of nice that it's broken up the way it is, and I think that's going to make our further analyzing it on this podcast really neat, and a kind of a neat way to approach it in blocks. I also really love that it's a centrally Obi-Wan story, which we were really robbed of entirely post Phantom Menace. And hopefully also we have reason to believe we're going to get that on Disney Plus coming up, but this is kind of another way to ramp up to an Obi-Wan central story, is to learn a little bit more about his past.
Yeah, no, that is a really good point. And I think that, and it excites me that you say it that way, because there are some really great arcs that we're going to be exploring that are not consistent, in the sense that there's some that focus well on Ahsoka. There's some that, and like kind of can explore her journey through about 3 different arcs and the movie, I'd say, are the best way to explore the Ahsoka journey through Clone Wars. And there's a great Yoda arc about learning how to become a Force ghost. And that's going to be incredible, because it just died. And that's what's great about the Clone Wars. It's this sprawling saga. It is the Saturday morning cartoon as well. And so you're able to get these, and it's like 1960s Batman. It's got all those classic tropes that like George Lucas was building this for what he would have dreamed to want to see on TV as a kid. Because that is, he designed everything under the guise of wanting to kind of reproduce that kind of Flash Gordon sort of style, but in a big cinematic way, because he wanted to be able to get the budgets for it. And that's why television is always such a great fit for Star Wars. And then he really kind of invented a lot of new technologies for animation. And he told Dave Filoni very much like we have to treat this like a movie in the way that we design shots and the way that we direct this series. And so that's a really important thing. And it translates so well into having Dave Filoni have that really cool directing style for like his Ahsoka episode, because that had such a beautiful consistency for Star Wars in that it was so creative in its vision, because he was so experienced in the animated world that he could visualize it in that kind of creative, off the chart way, but then reproduce it in the volume and then do so in live action, which is just exciting for what that means for Ahsoka, which will be the Force to like, it'll have a large Force focus. So there could be some really incredible uses of the volume. So that's exciting.
It's funny that you mentioned the 60s Batman series, because I also thought of that in particular when we're watching the sequence where he's suspended upside down and he's on a conveyor belt, like slowly crawling towards being crushed and doomed. Now, this reminded me of a couple of things. And I think it's, I have to mention also that recently on the podcast, we're talking about our favorite scenes in Star Wars. And I mentioned the trash compactor sequence. And I actually made a point of saying, they don't do this enough in Star Wars. They don't do the, oh no, our heroes are almost going to die suspense action sequence anymore. It's actually kind of false, because something that exists, well, I mean, there's in Attack of the Clones when Padme and Anakin are in the factory avoiding all the lava spilling. That's very, the imagery of it is very similar to what we see here. And I haven't seen that much Clone Wars, but I kind of take it that this sort of suspense action occurs at least semi-frequently. And it is a staple of 60s Batman. That's how every part one of a Batman arc ended, was with them kind of ensnared by some kind of elaborate trap that's going to slowly kill them. And then they break free at the very last minute, which is what he does here. I wanted to ask you, how much of a beefcake is Obi-Wan? Because we've talked so much about how impenetrable Beskar Steel is, and he is like dummying these Mandalorian soldiers with his fists. He just like cracks them in the heads and they go down. And I understand that he has the Force, but they don't appear to be quite as robust as, say, Din Djarin.
A couple things on that. Number one, Din has like a knight in shining armor suit of Beskar. He has thick, fresh, undestroyed Beskar.
Best of the best.
Now, the Death Watch, there's potential that the armor could be in the generations for a little bit longer, because they've been part of the family for a while, and so maybe they've been held on to for a little bit longer. We know Bo-Katan's, for example, remains the same integrity, and it's the same armor that she would wear part of Death Watch at this time. So it is supposed to be very, very, very similar. There has been a lot in Legends about some Durasteel Beskar alloys that have been used so that the armor wasn't necessarily quite as strong. It explains like Boba's dent on his helmet, and how certain things like this can contradict the way that Mandalorian armor seems so impenetrable. But then at the same time, look at what happens at the end of season 2. Din gets his ass almost handed to him by a dark trooper, barely gets out and takes the one out, and then is able to vacuum the rest of them out. And then Jedi Luke Skywalker has no issue with like 40 of them, if I remember correctly, or 30, whatever it was, 40, I think.
Right. And Obi-Wan, yeah.
Obi-Wan's a Jedi and a general, war general, and he's wearing armor. So it's shitty armor. It's stormtrooper armor, basically. It's proto stormtrooper like chest plate and crap. But he is in prime physical ass kicking mode, and just so happens to be, the only Jedi to kill a Sith in 1,000 years. So nothing major.
So a beefcake he is.
Absolutely. But then there's also going to be the sad realization in a couple arcs that's not so much the case. Maul's still here.
Oh, right.
So that's going to be really fun because Maul does intertwine with these Mandalorian arcs here. And so the three arcs of that make up these kind of like 9 episodes about Mandalore and the Clone Wars has a lot of Maul Obi-Wan in it as well. And so there's great focus on building that out too. And more reason as to why anyone a while back who was saying Maul should have been in the Obi-Wan show was crazy on top of the Rebels stuff. And then now I think everybody's forgotten about that because it's confirmed that it will be Vader and not Maul. And that's the way it should be.
All the Mandalorians we see in this episode have exactly the same armor, and it looks really exactly like Jango Fett's armor. Is this before they have decided canonically that there can be variations on what that looks like? Because now we see there's all these different styles of helmets that like have kind of a similar, a sort of a similar style, but these ones are all identical. And I wondered if you know why that is.
In this instance, it's just because they're the kind of the early militia of Death Watch picking up steam again.
Right.
And so they're, I forget how it works. There's like commando Mandos and other types. Like there's all these different like classic Mando, sniper man. Like, so there's all different configurations of Mandos. Like Din has a clear distinction in the style of his armor that's different from Boba Fett. And that's different from Jango Fett slightly. And that's Jango Fett's is very similar to Death Watch, but all of it's very different from when Maul takes over. And the armorer has remnants of, she has horns in her helmet. So I've always stated that I believe that she was a Maul follower, or at least her family were, which makes her likely to be the bad guy in the big picture, and likely in line with Death Watch. But we'll get down those roads later on. So no, this is there are characters in this episode like Prime Minister Almec, for example. He has Mando armor. He's not wearing it in this episode, but his Mando armor is super regal and awesome. It's green and really cool looking.
Doesn't he turn out to be not such a good guy in the final arc of the show?
I'm not sure if it's. He definitely does, but I'm just trying to remember whether it's revealed in the final arc or before the final arc, whether or not he's
I remember
a bad dude.
seeing it.
Yeah, he's a bad dude. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and I found it interesting actually when Jango Fett is briefly mentioned, because that Obi-Wan is like, I've only ever seen Mandalorian armor on one guy, and his name was Jango Fett, or I saw him recently, I guess he says. And the Prime Minister is like, well, Jango Fett's not a Mandalorian. God only knows how he got the armor, and it's interesting now that we have a different coloration for that character's history.
Yeah, no, that was one of the most well talked about lines. We talked about it when the tragedy happened, the episode, the tragedy, and it makes sense, especially seeing as Almec is an elitist, and that would be fitting for someone like him to say, "Oh no, he's not a Mandalorian." Well, he's born in Mandalorian space, and he was raised in Mandalorian values.
He's just
and he wears the armor.
Follow your little rules.
And he wasn't born in the capital.
Right. Let's do a little bit of trivia before we spoil any more stuff. A Padawan question for you along the same themes that we're talking about right now. How did the Mandalorians first come into possession of the Dark Saber?
They stole it from the Jedi. Well, that is what's listed in the episode. They say they stole it back from the Jedi Temple. They stole it from the Jedi Temple. But the true answer is the first Mandalorian Jedi was Tar Vizsla. And this is explained a little bit later in Rebels. And Tar Vizsla was the first Mandalorian Jedi, and that was his lightsaber. The Jedi, because he was a Jedi, the Jedi kept the lightsaber and kept it at the temple as part of like the shrine to all Jedi masters who serves, like almost like the Jedi cemetery. And then Mandalorians stole it back because it was like, no, he was our coolest Mando, just because he was one of you guys. And so then they kept it as more of a symbolic leadership token. And so stolen from the Jedi Temple, I'm assuming, is the answer, because canonically in this episode is what Previzla says.
That's what I'm looking for. It was such a treat to get to see that. I had no idea that we were going to see the Dark Saber in this episode.
Yeah, that is the introduction of the Dark Saber. So
is it imbued with any other powers, or is it just a lightsaber that looks funny?
We don't know. I believe it is a lightsaber that looks funny, and the kyber crystal. Maybe it isn't a kyber crystal. No, it is a kyber crystal. Kanan talks about it being a kyber crystal in Rebels, but it connects in. It's a unique kyber crystal. It has to be, because it made a unique looking blade, and it's a bloody cool lightsaber. This is a very easy Padawan question, but you might not know it. But who voices Previzla?
Oh, that was Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was very obviously Jon Favreau. It was like sometimes these voices are a little bit more disguised, but it was very clear. It was sounded like Jon Favreau, and it looked a lot like Jude Law, circa 2003.
Well, yeah, Mandos are supposed to look Scandinavian, and that's why another reason as to why Almec is a racist, because the Fets are Maori looking.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, this is a good lead into my next question. Name every character in Star Wars voiced by Jon Favreau.
Oh, wow. Well, there's Previzla, Rio. Crap, what's the other Vizsla's name? Heavy Infantry Mando. It's always what I call him.
Yeah, that is what you always call him.
Crap, I forget what the Mando's name is. What is it?
I don't know. I don't have it written here.
Do you just have Heavy Infantry Mando?
No, I was going to take your word for it.
Oh, crap. Yeah, Jon Favreau might have voiced a couple other characters, but yeah, those are the main ones that I know of.
Again, I know we keep talking about the Mandalorian, but like it was neat that he turned up in this, because this episode so tidily comes back to the show that the larger fan base is aware of. And so this episode, like, I really encourage anybody who enjoyed the Mandalorian and has never seen the Clone Wars to pull up Disney Plus and watch episode 2.12, because it really is a great partner for that show that we're getting to know better. And Jon Favreau being in it is just like a nice Easter egg.
Paz Vizsla is the other one.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, this is his introduction that way, which is great.
That was my master question, so I'll save my other one until I guess it's your turn to quiz me.
All right. How many worlds are part of the Council of Neutral Systems?
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah, they did.
I
think they said it in the 1,500 worlds, part of the new Council of Neutral Systems.
I didn't retain.
Yeah, so it's over 1,500.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. I think you'll get this one. I think maybe you've told me this one before. The physicality of Duchess Satine Kryze is based on what famous actress?
Cate Blanchett.
Yeah, and she does look like Cate Blanchett. Maybe she's named after Moulin Rouge. I don't really know, but it seems too solid a coincidence otherwise.
Yeah, it looks exactly like Cate Blanchett, and the vocal performance even mirrors her mid-Atlantic accent as well. Cate Blanchett being one of the only modern day actors with like a mid-Atlantic accent, but also an insanely good actor.
R.I.P. Christopher Plummer, by the way, one of the all-time great mid-Atlantic accents.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Okay, that's all I got for trivia for
icon. What type of vehicle do Obi-Wan and Satine use to investigate Concordia?
I don't know, but I liked that ship. I thought it was cool.
The ship, or
I thought they take a ship to the moon. That's not what you're talking about.
I wasn't talking about that. I'm assuming they probably took a Mando gauntlet.
Maybe so. And by the way, I really like the look of Concordia from space. The color palette, like this, like off pink and green, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not consistent though. So the clouds must be kind of like cool.
Yeah.
But it's not consistent with how the ground looks, and so that's one thing that would be nice.
No, that's kind of true. But I just like the look of it. I thought it was pretty.
Yeah, I was referring to a Bellator class swoop bike. Always cool to see the swoop bikes. The ones that I was referring to when they were investigating around Concordia, not when they were traveling there. I assume they took a gauntlet there. Maybe they didn't, but Mando gauntlets are their starfighters, and we did get to see those parked in the final episode of Mando season 2. Right, Bo and Casca were having drinks at the bar. They had their gauntlet outside.
I don't really have a whole lot of quotes saved from this episode. There was a couple of like nice lines that stand on their own, but most of it was like good dialogue, but most of it was just like kind of like rigid, well-crafted dialogue that wasn't quite as zippy. One line I liked is it reality that makes a Jedi abandon his ideals, or is it simply a response to political convenience? That's kind of her judging his she's calling it hypocrisy, his Jedi ways, with the fact that
Mm.
he's involved with like kind of violent endeavors. This is really one of the only references to his being a Jedi. Otherwise, he's really just a servant of the Republic in this episode.
Yeah, and that's kind of what she's giving him shit for.
Yeah.
But yeah, that entire exchange is good. A peacekeeper belongs in the front lines of conflicts. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do his job. The work of a peacekeeper is to make sure that conflict does not arise. Yes, a noble description, but not a realistic one.
Previzla says to Satine, take it as a compliment. Someone very powerful is working towards your downfall. I thought that was very menacing.
It was. Another one of his lines was, this lightsaber was stolen from your Jedi temple by my ancestors during the fall of the Old Republic. Since then, Jedi have died upon its blade. Prepare yourself to join them.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very Inigo Montoya. Very, very swashbuckling Saturday morning cartoon line. It's great.
But evil, but very evil.
Yes, absolutely. The evil variation of so. I haven't...
Go ahead.
I haven't saved you yet. Yes, no need to remind me of that.
Yeah, that's right. He has a really awkward moment actually there when he's suspended upside down. He just says something like, this isn't good. And it's just kind of classic Star Wars sarcastic dryness, but it's not quite as catchy as I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like a throwaway line.
Yeah, there's definitely some of those, and it's kind of done in fun ways.
Towards the end of the episode, Satine and Obi-Wan have rescued each other, and she says something like, well, now we're even. And
I suppose we're even now.
Yeah, and he said, I think it's him who says, yes, well, mine was the more daring of the two rescues.
Yeah, I was ready to say that one as well.
And like you said, very Han and Leia.
Yeah, it works really quite well. Please try not to cause problems where none yet exist. Think of me as searching for solutions. I have to tell you, I'm opposed to all of this. I'd be disappointed if you weren't.
Yeah, no, it's good. And the whole show written with this like really like posh, lofty, almost overwrought language and dialogue? It seems like it is, to kind of mimic the prequels.
Yes and no. So Obi-Wan, yes. Satine, yes. Anakin, no. Ahsoka, no. There is a very clear, Anakin was told to be played American. They told Matt Lanter, we're switching it up. Anakin's not going to be mid-Atlantic. He's going to be American in this show. And so we want a combination of Anakin, Luke, and Han. And that's what we want to present as Anakin in this. Whereas I think James Arnold Taylor does a really good job of blending Alec Guinness but really focusing on the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. But in doing so is going to sound very posh. I think that just overall, I think it's very character dependent and arc dependent, but obviously keeping the characters consistent in that regard.
This Obi-Wan, James Arnold Taylor, who does Obi-Wan, phenomenal vocal impression. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, you completely feel at home with the character.
Yeah, absolutely. He's it is, it can part an impression and also just an excellent performance in its own right. And I think you'll grow to appreciate it even more over these next coming episodes. This mini arc is good, but I'd say it's easily the least interesting of all of the arcs I'm going to show you. And so if you enjoyed this at all, then I think we're on to a good start.
I did very much. Is there anything else you wanted to say about it? Anything that is worth noting?
Just maybe a couple of the highlights and lowlights. Obi-Wan should have stopped the Mando from killing himself by using the Force.
Yeah.
He could have just levitated him.
A fair amount of suicide in this episode, because this is like, he's already said that I know of another guy who took his own life while we were trying to get information out of him, and then it happens again in front of us.
The art on the collarbones, so the art even develops quite a bit more from this. I'd say by season 3 or 4, they do a bit of an art and design update. But the collarbones in this point, they're a little pronounced, and some of the artwork here, it's a little rigid looking, but it grows to be incredible, and I'm so excited for that with Bad Batch. And some of the big highlights, seeing Sundari from the outside, it'll be very cool to see that dome flattened, likely in Mando. We've seen in Rebels just pretty much wasteland, but it wouldn't surprise me if we went back to Sundari. Maybe it's a military base now. Who knows? But that we're likely going to go back to the capital in some capacity.
Right.
And just overall, it was just a cool episode for showing some great exposition on Mando and their culture, and just learning about it, getting a little bit of all the elements of Star Wars, some romance, and some awesome action scenes as well. So it's a nice little 20-minute wrapped up in a bow, but also will blend well with the next few episodes.
I thought so too. I really enjoyed it. And I guess I have enjoyed most of the Clone Wars I've seen so far. So well chosen. Next week, we'll do 213.
Sure. Yep. 213. Then we'll do 214, and then we can take a break and do some of the 6 and 6s for a little while, and then we can either do the rest of this big arc and do all the 9 Mando episodes, or switch it up a little bit and do some of the other ones. We'll play it by ear.
What's going on in the news in the world of Star Wars? We haven't had a pod in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there is some stuff in the news. Let's start off with the video game world. And so it does look like Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 are going to be getting redone, readapted, remade, but completely modernized in a new way. So this is rumor, but a heavy rumor. It looks like the company Aspire is hiring old BioWare employees, the ones who worked on developing those projects, and that there's a rumored like near 100 million or 70 to 100 million dollar budget on this project. And so there's a lot of rumors about it. And so when there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of smoke on a lot of these other things in the past, but this one seems to have, you could just kind of gauge by where the smoke's coming from and how much there is, and the variety, and whether or not you do like source tracing on some of these, like, okay, where did you go back and find it? If you find a lot of original sources, it just seems to be likely, and this is one of those ones. It's one of those rumors that just seems very likely. So that is insanely cool.
Yeah.
There's going to be an open world game by Ubisoft, and potentially a KOTOR game coming back. There's also a shooter game that looks to be in works, and this is not Battlefront, so it could be another one. And this is being built on the Fallen Order engine, and so that's interesting. It would be potentially like a similar size game to the Star Wars Squadrons game that was released this year. And so my guess is it'll be like, I don't know, similar to Battlefront, maybe like a Call of Duty style, but for Star Wars, I'm not really sure. But that seems interesting. Battlefront has a lot of those kind of main characters, so maybe it'll be it very, very, very well could be a Clone Wars game. It very well could be you are a clone and you're like customizing your clone armor and your paint, and that'll get a huge, huge fan base already from the get-go. I just kind of thought of that right now, but actually now that I bet you it is a clone game.
And they have done that before, right? The Call of Duty type games where it's essentially a storybook game, but it's war-based and it's gritty and it's Star Wars.
Yeah, I was referring to more in the sense that the focus would be probably more on the online aspect, the same way that Squadrons was. There probably will be a small story, same way Battlefront was. But Battlefront also has some focus on, like, you get the hero characters, whereas you can play, like, I guess if you get a bunch of points, you play as Darth Vader then, and you're more powerful. My guess is this would be more era specific, and the same way that Squadrons is specific to like kind of that time period for Empire, like, and Rebels post, or New Republic post fall of the Empire. So I think that's good. That's cool, but it's also interesting to see that as soon as they kind of decided they were going to have their back off from the exclusivity with EA, the floodgates seem to be opening up. So that's really exciting.
It was worth the wait, but I really wish that, I really hope that this is what we're hoping for, because it definitely seems like video games are the last frontier for Star Wars.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be the forgotten area, and now realizing, we could just make billions of dollars if we want.
Yeah.
Because the IP is so strong, and video games are a medium that is blowing past film.
I think their concern
the size
is
of the
that-
market.
I think their concern is that they're not as eternal as film. Like, they do age on. Only once in a generation is there a game that kind of transcends beyond its
Battlefront 2, I think, is an example of one that was so garbage at the beginning that nobody had any expectations for it. But people who do play it say it's great, and they've only done a good job. And the updates that they've done, the Rise of Skywalker update, they've all been incredible, apparently. And so it's not my cup of tea game, but a game can live for 5 years if you're smart about it. It's just they haven't been smart about the start of any of their games, and even Jedi Fallen Order. That one hasn't had a huge lifespan with it, but I also don't think it was necessarily the most strategic first game. It was great and it worked. It was a huge hit for them, and I was proven wrong in that regard. But I would have expected this open world game that they're doing with Ubisoft, something along those lines, would have been a more logical step before Fallen Order, in my opinion. But
Right.
potato, it looks like the floodgates are open now.
Yes.
Lucasfilm has hired Momita Sengupta as vice president of physical production. So she was hired away from Netflix. So this is just meaning that they've got somebody else with a lot of experience on their production team. And that's a good thing. Likely has built up some strong relationships with people who have worked on Netflix projects. And they likely wanted somebody who was able to facilitate probably projects on a ridiculous timeline, because that's what Netflix does. And so this is a win. She, I think, has experience prior to Netflix as well. So good executive hire. Not much else to say on that.
No, that's good though. Building the dream team.
Yeah, that's exactly what you got to do. And there's also a Life Day kind of book, which is kind of cool. It's a Life Day treasury. So it's stories, holiday stories from a galaxy far, far away. In part of the pitch deck for this, there was a picture of Ewoks in the snow. And apparently that was the thing that was the slam dunk that got this thing approved because it was just so cute. And so the notion of being able to kind of tell some stories around holidays and the importance of holiday in the galaxy in the far, far away. So these stories... yeah, I think this is a great idea. The way that they've done these kind of like intercut stories with a topic on them, but this one being holiday based, I think it's awesome because it's likely going to be focusing on a lot of different types of holidays and the ways different species celebrate too.
Well, and interestingly, like faith and spirituality are like a big role in Star Wars beyond just the Jedi. Like it's a huge part of almost every character comes from some kind of creed. But very seldom is the joy and tradition of the creed explored. It's really just like, what do we stand for? And it's kind of nice that we have an opportunity to explore the happy stuff too.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that's great about the High Republic. Although the High Republic, I'm still not done in the Light of the Jedi yet, although I'm making my way through it and it's so damn good. It is kind of writing the fall of the Jedi, but the Jedi are still at their high at this point.
Right.
And so you do get to kind of see some success of the creed and some of the benefits behind it, as opposed to just the Mace Windu downside. So
cool.
A lot of other stuff kind of in the TV area, Andor. So I didn't bring this up for a while because I was pretty confident this was the case. And it was the case that there's been complaints about this big set being built, and they were saying that it was the Obi-Wan show. I thought it was Andor show. It's indeed the Andor show. So Andor is filming in London because Obi-Wan was confirmed to be doing all of its filming in California. And all the reports have been about Andor that people have confused as Obi-Wan. It's being shot all on the volume, and it has not started to film yet.
This is just a classic case of people not really knowing that Andor exists. They know
exactly.
that they know the Obi-Wan show is happening, but the greater public doesn't even know what Andor is.
Exactly. And so Andor is moving along quite well. Toby Haynes, who's been mentioned before, is a director. He did Sherlock, Black Mirror, and a few other things. In addition, Ben Caron, who has done a bunch of episodes of The Crown, as well as he did Sherlock as well. And Susanna White, who did Jane Eyre, The Deuce, Billions, Generation Kill, and a few other projects as well. A lot of other modern projects. So just kind of building out a team of other directors to kind of dip their feet in. So that's encouraging. I'm a little worried about there being too many leadership directions. Like Henry Gilroy is the leader on this project, but I'm curious about his level of oversight. Now I know that Favreau Filoni worked on Mando, but that will not work across the board. And
no, not every time.
Favreau Filoni, like, they should have a hand in everything a little bit. I mean, they don't need to have any. They need to be able to make sure that this is going to work. And I think that it's great that they're bringing in these other directors. And Tony Gilroy has worked on Star Wars before, so that helps. But it would be nicer to have the proving ground be Mando more so than, or shows that have a more proven oversight. Tony
Yep.
Gilroy is not somebody who I want providing oversight on other people. Tony Gilroy has done a phenomenal job of everything that he directly has a hand in.
He's not a Star Wars fan.
He's not a Star Wars fan. He was the fixer on Rogue One. Gareth
Yeah.
Edwards was the Star Wars fan and provided him all the content that he could fix.
There does need to be one resident creative authority at Star Wars. And I mean, it ought to be Dave Filoni. I know he's got his hands full, but there needs to be somebody who can say yes, no to literally every question.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it being Favreau and Filoni. I think they work so well together that I think you can do a duo because one has such a different skill set from the other, and they respect the other's skill sets so well, and it's proven that they can work, that I think a duo could work. But you're right, when it comes to creative authority, Dave Filoni, I'm sure has seen the scripts or whatnot, but it seems like it's a lot of like I don't see any reason why you can't have Rick Famuyiwa be thrown into that group because he knows it so well, or why you can't have Peyton Reed go in there, or just one person who has been part of something a little bit closer, and maybe they do that just hasn't been announced, or maybe it's somebody who's a little bit more of a behind the scenes, less known name, but that it provides that good channel. So I'm not going to assume the worst by any means. There is consistency likely that they're following the previous stories, because further confirmation that Alan Tudyk will be back in the story maybe at some point, but that he's not in this early. It's really confusing. Is it 12 episodes total or 12 episodes for the season? We don't know. So if we find out this season is like 4 or 6 episodes, well, then we know Alan Tudyk will be in a different season. But if this is a 12 episode first season, is it like, is there potential for another season after this that they just haven't determined yet? Or what's the deal? So this Alan Tudyk thing is a big question mark, because he was confirmed before there was a confirmed script. Right. And now he's not in it. So it's interesting to see where in the timeline this is going to fit, and how they may introduce K2, and whether it'll be consistent with the comics.
12 is long. That's a long season nowadays.
It is. And so maybe it is two 6-episode seasons, or maybe 3 4-episode seasons. That'd be great. No issue with that whatsoever. I actually would prefer that, because that means we would get K2 at some point. Obi-Wan, one other thing on that would be that they have hired their cinematographer, Chung Hoon Chung, and he did The Handmaiden, Old Boy, Hotel Artemis, Zombieland Double Tap, and the upcoming Edward Wright movie Last Night in Soho, as well as the upcoming movie, the Uncharted movie. So someone who has a lot of experience and is an award-winning cinematographer. And I just looked up a couple shots just to get a kind of a vibe. And yeah, he's got a really cool style. So, because I don't really know those projects that well, but I know of them. And so I think this could work. I think this could be really cool.
Cool.
Bad Batch, confirmation pretty much that it's going to be coming in spring. It's heavily rumored, and by a lot of reliable sources, spring isn't that clear, but May the 4th be with us, probably. And that would be my guess, or some form of May anniversary. There are so many May anniversaries for Star Wars that you could throw it on any of those as well, and it would work fine. So my guess is May for the Bad Batch. So that'll be exciting. And Mando season 3, it's looking like there's going to be an April film and start. So it's not going to start filming until April, which means probably April, May, June 2022 is when we'll be getting it, which is maybe a little later than hopefully April.
Yeah. No, they can turn around a season in a year. They've done it before, less than a year.
Oh yeah. And so maybe it'll be March. Who knows? That would be great. Mando also for the Writers Guild Writers Guild of America Awards, got Best Drama nomination, got Best Drama nomination at the Golden Globes, got Best Ensemble nomination for SAG. And so it's getting some good props from the film community and the kind of the TV community. So that's very encouraging for Star Wars projects in general, in the same way that they're kind of aligned with comic books and maybe don't get their due the way that they should be. And I think Mandalorian is a great example of a project that like Best Ensemble. I don't know what the other options are, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't be an extremely deserving candidate for something like that. especially when you've got like 5 people playing like this little green guy.
Right. Well, going beyond the original Star Wars movie, which did win a handful of Academy Awards, and it deserved to because it was revolutionary. It has won the occasional below the line like technical award. Also, deservedly so in its 40 some years. But I think probably with the inaugural live action TV series, somebody at the helm is going, look, Game of Thrones is winning or at least getting nominated for everything. There's no reason we can't do that too. And I think it's kind of perfectly acceptable that they're chasing after this stuff. They are the king of popular culture. They might as well get the trophies to prove it.
Yeah, I did want to check, and I thought that was the case. No, Return of the Jedi was the last one to win an Oscar.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it was the last one to win an Oscar. But they have, let's see,
but they get nominated for sound mixing and things like that. Pretty regular.
Yeah, Grammy. It won a Grammy for The Force Awakens.
That's cool.
And it won a BAFTA for The Force Awakens, and let's see, some Saturn Awards as well.
Yeah.
And otherwise, in the news, there is nothing. Nothing really else in the news. Just that I'm continuing to read Light of the Jedi, and that the Nihil, who are the Nihil, who are the kind of Viking style bad guys, are extremely cool. A lot cooler than I thought. They are evil marauders, and they're a very interesting foe for the Jedi. And the galaxy is being explored in a really cool way. The relationship characters have with the Force, some of the relationships they have with attachment is interesting. And there is also the Santekas are playing a big role in the time period.
I'm into that. So, I like the Santekas.
Yeah, there's definitely some big spoiler things around that could be very interesting that I can chat with you about. But that's very, very cool, kind of the way that the galaxy is broadening out, but connecting all the same.
Cool. Well, I want to wish a couple of happy birthdays. Pretty big happy birthday week. On Monday, February 8th, a happy birthday to Nick Nolte, who we're unlikely to see again, but he was kind of a scene stealer in season 1 Mando. On Tuesday, the 9th, John Williams, which is the day we're recording this. And it's notable that Mark Hamill tweeted a happy birthday to John Williams, saying that aside from George Lucas, there's nobody who did more to contribute to the success of Star Wars than John Williams, which I think is accurate. I think that's an assessment. Happy birthday on Wednesday, the 10th, to Laura Dern, and on Saturday, the 13th, to Pernilla August, who plays Shmi Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. Listen, if you want to be caught up to our podcast by next week, watch episodes 212 and 213 of The Clone Wars. You can find it on Disney+. In the meantime, if you have any thoughts on this podcast or any questions, you can always tweet us at Recorder66 or email recorder66podcast@gmail.com. Rate and review on your preferred podcast app, which may or may not include Spotify at this point. What's the status of that?
Not quite, or maybe yet. We'll have to wait and see. You and I, actually, we should just talk briefly about that after this, just because there's one other thing I think we need to do. But yeah, we're switching over to Anchor so that we can have access to Spotify and all of the podcasting platforms, so that we can just chat with more people.
It shouldn't affect your feed as it is now, but currently we're definitely accessible on iTunes and Google Play Music, as well as we have a YouTube channel, so you can find us there. And until we are together again,
may the Force be with you. Okay, yeah, and you know how I said before how I got a cool Star Wars prop?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Yep. You didn't say that exactly, but
well,
I have a feeling I
know.
Know.
Sorry? You feel like you know?
I have a feeling I know.
What do you think it might be?
Yeah, I have a feeling I know. It's a lightsaber. You got a Graflex lightsaber.
No, I didn't. I went a little different this time. I went with something that I know we're not going to see for a little bit, and I don't know if I was okay with that.
Oh my God. Does it do anything?
No, it's a statue designed by the same individuals who made the real $5 million puppet. He's got hair.
Wow.
He's got his eyes. He's got his coat.
He's perfect. So he's like he's like to scale.
He is exactly to scale. He has
He's adorable. Oh my God.
he has this little ball
Ah!
which magnetically holds in his hand.
Good Lord, that's so cute.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. How heavy is he?
Kilogram and a half, I'd say. 4 pounds, maybe 2 pounds.
Yeah,
4
okay.
pounds.
Right.
2 kilograms. Like his eyes are incredible.
So when you say he's designed by the same people who make the puppet, like, do they make them as a consumer product?
No, but look at the pores, Colin. That's like it's insane. So how it worked was
It's sensational.
they partnered with Legacy Effects, which is the company that made Grogu, and so they worked with them to get the casting for the head, to figure out the paint methods, how they would paint him, to get input on how to make the coat, so that they like had a close look to make redo the coat. They taught them the same hair punch methods to be able to punch hair into the head, and so it's made from the same material. It's just the mouth doesn't move, and it's not a robot inside. It's just a statue.
What is the material of the head? Is it like a plastic or is it rubbery?
Rubbery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
cool.
Let's see if you can see that light passes through his ears.
I hope somebody's driving by and can see that. I know they can't, but I wish they could.
Yeah, that would be great. So yeah, so it comes with a little stand.
Dude, that's cool.